BLG, are you enthused or optimistic about what you've seen from Jalen Hurts through 10 days of camp?
Yeah, I am. Again, it's like I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's perfect. It's been even at all times, but I think the good to me has outweighed the bad, and I feel encouraged about the on-field results, how people are talking about him, how he is talking about things, and seems really truly bought in. Vic Fangio's out here praising him. Everyone's talking about how he looks slimmed down and faster, which I certainly agree with, just based on what I've seen. So yeah, I think the arrow is pointing up on Jalen from what we're seeing in training camp. Mind you, too, the offense is having some success here without Devontae, and then we'll see what Mekhi Lemon becomes. But on paper, he's one of your top receivers, and he hasn't been practicing as well. So, and Lane Johnson missed a bunch of time as well. So the fact that Jalen is having success on offense without some of those key pieces, I think that's a good sign.
I feel like we never talk about the defense because it's so good. Um, couple little issues cropped up. I know Vic, when I asked him about Reek Woolen yesterday, used some interesting adjectives that I did not expect. Um, and maybe that explains why he only got a 1 year deal. And Seattle essentially chose Josh Jobe over Reek Woolen, which makes no sense from a talent perspective. Um, any concerns anywhere on the defense for you?
I would say with Woolen, he hasn't had as good of a camp as he did in the spring, which, in fairness, was a very high bar because he was awesome in the spring and basically, infallible there. But training camp, not quite the same story. Again, not a bad camp to me, just that there's been some lapses. Certainly, even yesterday, I thought there was a rep where Darius Cooper made that catch on a comeback against him. Woolen kind of had maybe given up or eased up a little bit there when he really probably should have just played it all the way through. So and he just generally seems susceptible to getting beat a little bit more on those passes to the sideline. As opposed to I'm not worried about him deep as much. He has that speed, he has the length. So I'm not worried about him, but something to monitor there. Defense as a whole, I feel really good about. It's unfortunate that Jonathan Gennard is apparently going to miss a couple more weeks here. I think he'll be ready to play by week one. I just think it's a question of, what's that snap count percentage look like? And then what's his effectiveness look like early on in the season when he might kind of still be, rehabbing, recovering from the injury.
Obviously, two big contracts, BLG, for the defensive tackles. How did they look to you through 10 days?
I mean, I don't think you could have asked him to look much better. I mean, Jalen Carter lives in the backfield. You can see flashes of just pure dominance out there. It feels like he can take over the practice when he wants to. I feel good about him. And then Jordan Davis, I kind of think maybe almost having an underrated camp just because we're all talking about, Jalen Carter and just got paid and everything. Obviously, Davis got paid earlier this year, but looks like he could make another leap too. I really like how he's especially looked as a pass rusher, getting pressure up the middle there. Again, just like kind of been saying about Jalen Carter, the same thing applies to Jordan Davis in terms of they're not paying him for what he's done to this point. They're paying him for what he is going to be moving forward. And I would buy that we could see really good seasons and maybe the best seasons of their careers this year.
And added Moro Jomo was killing people in 1-on-1s yesterday, and
Oh yeah.
Byron Young, who's a darn good player as well. Is that the deepest position on the team for you?
I think when you're accounting for top end talent too. So I think like they have a lot of depth at wide receiver, but it's the top
Yeah, I
end
did.
talent.
Did I tell you my baseball rotation? I think they got a good bunch of fours, but I'd
Yeah.
rather have they got a one, they got a three. I think Wicks is a three, and I think they got a bunch of good fours who can give you innings.
Right.
Um, I'd still rather have the one and two, and
Right.
yeah, but
So if you're accounting for like both of those things, I would say yes, defensive tackle because you have the high end talent and you have I think some of the depth behind them. Curious to see who that fifth guy is because the Eagles have gone sometimes as deep as five, even six in the past at defensive tackle. It's not really clear right now. Is it Ty Robinson, who's had a mostly disappointing camp, but has had some moments? looked better a little bit recently.
They keep giving him more reps recently. Do you think that's like a last-ditch effort to see if they can kickstart him? More second-team reps, see what he can do. A couple first-team reps the other day.
Yeah, I would say that's fair to say.
Yeah. Because that's a situation where I don't know if they were necessarily earned. You know where I am a little bit concerned on defense? Now with Jonathan Jones out, it doesn't look like there's a ton of depth at corner past Quinyon and Reek, and you kind of saw it. Quinyon got banged up in one-on-ones yesterday, and all of a sudden they're being cautious, which I get. And Mac McWilliams is in there getting the first team reps. That's a pretty dramatic fall. I think if Jones can get back, and I think he's a solid backup, but then you start talking about, it seems like they've given up on Ringo as a potential actual corner. He's just a special teams guy at this point. The other day was Jacorian Bennett and Tariq Castro Fields getting the second team reps. A little concerned with that, the corner depth.
Yeah, especially if Jones is going to be out for a little bit here, as Fangio indicated. Because I think he's a credible player. Has had some good moments in the offseason. We feel like we feel comfort level with that. Mac McWilliams had a good day, I thought, yesterday. I thought it was also positive for him that Vic Fangio kind of spoke nicely about him. Said he's matured and said something about how he had some praise for him that he couldn't share with us, which I thought was interesting. I guess the verbiage.
Yeah, what the heck could that mean?
Yeah.
I guess not safe for work so much.
Maybe.
But I thought Mac has done some good. He hasn't had a perfect training camp. There's some reps he lost that didn't look great to me earlier in camp, but more recently, good day. It's a little unproven there, but interested to see if he can kind of keep it up here.
Can't make the club in the tub. Cole Wisniewski is a guy who got a lot of pub when the Eagles drafted him, as much pub as you could get as a 7th round pick. But there was an opportunity. It looked like because of the safety position, and maybe there would be an opportunity. Just hasn't been able to get on the field. Another hamstring issue. The position as a whole, I think Michael Carter's a better football player than Marcus Epps, but I think Vic is enamored by his versatility, and I think that kind of hurts him. He's the backup slot. He's the back. He's the dime back. The few times they use that, and he's the backup would be the top backup safety. Do you think he should be the starter, or do you think you should just keep him in that utility role?
Yeah, I like Marcus Epps enough to continue to roll with him, and then if you have to pivot away from him at some point because it's just going poorly, then you make that call then. But I think Epps has had a fine camp. Like, I haven't really noticed him a lot. I think in a good way, and I want him starting. Carter, like you said, dime player, potentially backup nickel. Something happens to Cooper DeJean. In addition to being a backup here at safety. So I think he's a nice player to have. But yeah, I would like him to not be the full-time starter to start the year.
Well,